They said he could buy the whole town if he wanted, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Ethan Grayson was the kind of man people feared, not because he was violent, but because he could be, if he wanted. Money was his armor, power his weapon. Every business owner in the small coastal town of Alder Bay either worked for him or owed him something. He owned the restaurants, the gas stations, the factories, even the mayor's loyalty. When his black Rolls-Royce pulled into town, people literally crossed the street. No one dared to look him in the eye, except one person, a waitress named Lily. She didn't know who he was when she first met him. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when it happened. The Bayview Diner, a modest cafe overlooking the ocean, was half empty. Lily had just started her first shift. Her hands trembled as she carried a tray of coffee cups to a table, nervous but determined. Life had already knocked her down too many times. Her mother was sick, her rent was overdue, and this job was her last hope. That's when the door swung open. Every head turned. Ethan Grayson, tall, polished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than the diner's monthly rent, stepped inside. The room froze. The cook peeked out from the kitchen window and immediately whispered something to the owner, who nearly spilled his coffee in panic. Lily just frowned. "What's with everyone?" she whispered to her coworker. "That's him," the other waitress said under her breath. "Ethan Grayson. The millionaire. Don't mess up his order. He once shut down a place because his coffee was cold." Lily blinked. "You're joking, right?" The other waitress didn't even smile. Ethan took his usual seat by the window, the one no one dared to use unless he was out of town. Everyone waited for him to speak first. Finally, he raised a single finger, signaling for service. No one moved, except Lily. She walked over, not out of courage, but because she thought everyone else was being ridiculous. "Good afternoon, sir," she said politely, holding her notepad. "What can I get you today?" Ethan looked up, surprised. "You're new." "Yes," she said, and apparently the only one brave enough to take your order. The diner went silent. You could have heard the clock tick. Ethan stared at her, a flicker of something between curiosity and annoyance in his cold gray eyes. "Coffee. Black. No sugar. And the steak. Medium rare." "Got it," she said. "And I'll make sure your coffee's not cold, so you don't have to buy the diner to fix it." Someone in the back coughed to hide a laugh. The owner's face went pale. But Ethan smirked. A small, unexpected crack in his stone-like expression. When Lily brought his food, she didn't tiptoe like everyone else. She didn't bow, didn't avoid eye contact. She just served it like any other customer. "Your steak," she said, setting the plate down. "Let me know if it's good enough for a millionaire." He looked at her, still amused. "You don't seem afraid of me." "Should I be?" she asked, genuinely confused. Ethan leaned back, studying her face. "Everyone else is." "Well," she said with a shrug, "maybe they just forgot you're human." For a second, he didn't know what to say. Then, he actually laughed, something no one in that diner had ever heard before. Word spread fast. By the end of the week, everyone in town was talking about how the new waitress made the mighty Ethan Grayson laugh. Some found it hilarious, others whispered that she'd gone too far. But Ethan kept coming back. Every afternoon. To the same diner. To see her, not because he was interested in romance, but because for the first time in years, someone talked to him like a person, not a paycheck. One day, he asked her, "Why aren't you afraid of losing your job?" "Because fear doesn't pay bills," she said, pouring him another coffee. "Effort does." He smiled faintly. "And if your effort fails?" "Then I'll try again," she replied. "That's what people like me do. We don't have safety nets." Her words hit him harder than she could imagine. That night, Ethan drove home but didn't go inside his mansion right away. He sat in his car for hours, staring at his reflection in the windshield. Somewhere between his millions and his empty halls, he realized he had everything, except peace. The next few days, he was quieter. Less intimidating. He began tipping the waitstaff generously. He started talking to them, really talking, but the real turning point came one afternoon when the diner owner rushed out of the kitchen, pale and sweating. The stove had exploded. Flames were spreading fast. Smoke filled the air. People screamed, scrambled for the exits. Ethan jumped up, grabbing a fire extinguisher, and helped put out the flames before the firefighters arrived. Lily coughed through the smoke, trying to get people out safely. After it was over, the diner was a wreck, burnt walls, shattered glass, the smell of smoke thick in the air. The owner sat outside, head in his hands. "It's gone," he muttered. "Everything's gone." Ethan looked at Lily, who was trying to comfort him, then he said quietly, "No, it's not." The next morning, the whole town woke to a sign outside the burned diner, Bayview Diner, "Rebuilding starts today." Sponsored by Ethan Grayson. People were stunned. He didn't make a speech. He didn't call the press. He just paid for everything, the repairs, the wages, even new uniforms. But what touched everyone most was how he showed up every single day to help rebuild. He didn't send workers. He came himself, rolling up his sleeves, carrying bricks, sweating alongside them. One afternoon, Lily asked him, "Why are you doing all this?" Ethan wiped his brow and said, "Because you were right. I forgot I was human." The new diner reopened 3 months later, brighter, bigger, filled with laughter. On opening day, Ethan didn't sit in his usual corner. He sat at the counter like everyone else. The mayor came by, local journalists took pictures, and the townsfolk clapped when Ethan gave a short, unexpected speech. "I spent most of my life thinking respect was bought," he said. "But this place, and this town, taught me that respect is earned. I used to make people afraid. Now I just want to make them proud." The room erupted in applause. Lily stood near the back, smiling, tears shining in her eyes. From that day on, Alder Bay changed. People no longer whispered when Ethan Grayson's car rolled through town. They waved. Some even joked with him. And every time he visited the diner, he made sure to tip Lily with a smile, not money, but something else. One day, he left an envelope on her table. Inside was a letter and a check. The letter read, "For the girl who reminded me what humanity looks like, use this to chase whatever dream you've put on hold." The check was enough to pay her mother's hospital bills, and open a small bakery she'd always dreamed of. Years later, when Ethan passed away peacefully at 68, the entire town attended his funeral. The once feared millionaire was remembered not for his wealth, but for his kindness, for rebuilding the diner, and for learning how to laugh again. At the reception, someone asked Lily, "Do you think he ever changed completely?" She smiled softly. "No one changes overnight. But he tried, and sometimes, that's enough." Outside, the wind from the ocean carried the faint scent of coffee and salt, the same way it had that rainy Thursday when everything began, and from that day forward, the story of the waitress who made a millionaire laugh became a legend, a reminder that even the hardest hearts can melt, and that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply serves coffee with a smile.